Welcome in yet again. Football game this Saturday is on tap. West Virginia is heading to Kansas. And we're your men to preview it for you from WVSports.com. This is another edition of Musings from the Mountains. I'm Keenan Cummings, managing editor at the site.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer for the site.
You've become familiar with these fireside chats, it seems like every week. We're outside. You can hear the crickets probably. It's a good day.
Most importantly, Keenan's going with the Bill Belichick look for today.
Check that out. Yeah, the short sleeve cut off hoodie thing. But more importantly, aside from my fashion choices, we're going to discuss West Virginia versus Kansas. Just like we all expected, both teams 2-1, both teams coming off dominating wins against ACC. Nobody expected that. No. Not after the way West Virginia played against Missouri or the way that Boston College played against Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers. They were ready for it. What I did take away is both teams are going to be coming into this game with a lot of momentum. Obviously, West Virginia took care of business at home against NC State. Kansas went on the road and boat raced Boston College. So at this point, I think this is a game of which team is able to carry that momentum over. Kansas has not had a lot of success, obviously. Hired Les Miles in the offseason. He's already broke one streak. Their first win against a Power 5 opponent since 2008. 48 straight losses. 48. That's a lot of games, Patrick.
And like you mentioned, Keenan, like you said, this is going to be a question of whether or not each team can continue that momentum. These teams are almost at the kind of the same place. I mean, they they suffered pretty bad losses in week 2, then they've rebounded pretty well in week 3. So I mean, it's going to be really a question of which team can do it again. Basically, if you're West Virginia, you said it can't just be a one-time thing. You got the run game going, offensive line got going with 3 new starters. That's great to see, but it can't just be a one-time thing. It has to, you have to do it consistently.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting too. Both teams sort of reinvented themselves.
Yeah.
From game 2 to game 3. Kansas was pretty much lining up 11, 12 personnel and trying to pound the ball down other teams' throats. They switched it up, went more spread, kind of put the ball into Carter Stanley's hands, their quarterback. Let him make some things happen. Of course, they still are going to run the ball. That's the strength of their team. But they opened it up more. West Virginia, obviously, as we've already gone through, used a lot of the edge, used a lot of motion, tried to create running lanes through some things they were doing pre-snap, and it worked. West Virginia had 173 yards rushing against NC State. Now they go against Kansas. Kansas is another 3 down front defensively. Have played much better up front than people expected. They lost a lot from last year's team up front, but that's been one of the pleasant surprises for them.
Got a lot of size, too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if West Virginia can run the ball. They're going to have to run the ball. I think, as you saw last week, that makes them a much more balanced offense and gives Austin Kendall a lot more options pre-snap and obviously as the game goes forward. The strength of Kansas' team, without question, is their backfield. You might remember Khalil Herbert. He almost went for 3 bills against West Virginia in 2017 in a game that was just very weird. Puka Williams is probably the best running back, if not the best, one of the best in the Big 12, and they have a 1-2 punch there. They also get a third guy in the mix, but those are going to be your two guys that really tote the rock for Kansas in different styles. Herbert's more of a bigger back that's going to break tackles. Think more Letty Brown with probably a little bit more speed. Williams is more patient. He's that big play guy. You get him the football, he can make things happen. West Virginia did a pretty good job against them last year. But this is a different game. This is a different Kansas team. Les Miles is kind of putting his footprint on it.
Different regimes.
Yeah, they are going to try to run the football, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see a similar attack to what they used last week. Kansas doesn't throw the ball a lot, but when they do, it's usually going to Andrew Parchment. He has 20 of... He's the only receiver on the team this year that has over 15 targets and over 10 receptions. So that should tell you something. He has, I think it's 43% of the yards thrown by Carter Stanley have been to him. Use him a lot. He's caught 20 of 27 passes on the season. He's going to be their guy they go to when they do have to throw the football. And I think West Virginia's obviously got to be kind of minded of where he's at.
It's going to be interesting, too, just to see what kind of Carter Stanley that we get on Saturday, too. I mean, he had a rough game week 2 against Coastal Carolina, then he rebounded this past week, like you said, when they kind of went more spread, went away from the I formation. He only had 7 incomplete passes last week, threw for 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think a lot of what Kansas can do offensively against West Virginia will depend on what kind of which Carter Stanley that they get, and obviously what the running backs can do too. I mean, that's going to be an interesting matchup. We've seen West Virginia's defense struggle against the run at times, mostly during the first half. They've been able to make great adjustments at the second half, but even like last game, Vic Koenig said, defensive coordinator said, it wasn't much adjustments. It was more just reminding them that to play your game, to do what you're coached to do, and that's why you've seen this West Virginia defense play considerably better in the second half in all three of these games.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the age-old question: can you stop the run and can you run the football?
Mm-hmm.
Both these teams are going to have to do that to win this game. Something that was talked about a lot in the offseason, I'd like to kind of get into it a little bit, is the play of the defensive line. There was a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about West Virginia moving away from that 3-3-5 stack, where basically the linemen served as block eaters, I guess you should say, occupiers. They were going to be more aggressive, get upfield, and it's working. West Virginia is one of the top teams in the conference at tackles for loss. They are number 1 in the league in sacks, which I don't think I remember that happening.
Look at the Still brothers. Still brothers have, 6 of those?
Yeah, since they joined the Big 12, I don't think that's happened at any point. But West Virginia leads the Big 12 in sacks through 3 games, so it's working. And I think they're going to have to play well again. Obviously, the loss of Taj Austin hurt that unit, but they played well against NC State. And if West Virginia can continue to get this type of production out of the Stills brothers, that's going to make things a lot more difficult for teams down the road. As we do every week, before we get to our prediction, we're going to take your questions. You ask them, we're going to answer them. We have not rehearsed these, as usual. So let's fire away, Pat. What do we got?
Are you ready?
Yep.
Is Bryson Mays Bryson Mays West Virginia's next great center? Is it too early to project a multi-year anchor in the middle of the line in the mold of Tyler Orlowski or Dan Moses?
Let's just have a good second start first. I don't think that he played poorly by any means. Obviously, it was an upgrade. Was running off a lot of juice. I think he was amped up for the game. It was showing at times. Needs to get his pad level better and do some things that are going to come. He's a redshirt freshman. I do think there's potential there, though. Out of all the options they've used there, he seems to be the most comfortable, which is ironic because he had never played center before until he got to West Virginia.
He played tackle in high school.
Yeah, he was a right tackle in high school. So I think it's interesting that he looked the most comfortable there. And if West Virginia can continue to get that type of production out of him, yeah, he could be. Matt Moore said yesterday, he knocked on wood. This could be the answer to all the problems they've had. Well, not all, but a lot of the problems they've had up front, because it starts and stops with the center. You got to have good play there, and you got to be able to recognize. You got to make calls. This former center right here can tell you.
Well, I mean, just look at the climb that Bryson Mays has made since fall camp. I mean, he was a guy that was talked a lot about. I feel like during spring. Fall camp, we didn't hear as much about him. We heard mostly it's Chase Barrett's job, and didn't really hear a lot about the people behind him. But for Matt Moore, a lot of it was for Bryson Mays. His snaps got considerably better. He was playing more physical. He understood the playbook a lot better. And it showed. It didn't show during pregame, as Moore pointed out yesterday. He said Bryson had 4 or 5
snaps over his head with no rush. So he started to. I wrote about this too. You'll read it on the site later this week. He got a little nervous, but he went to talk to him, calmed him down, and did not have any bad snaps in the game.
Like you said, I think it was a great start for Bryson. Obviously, there's still a lot to build off of for Mays, and a lot of it is low pad level as well. But that's not just him; that's their offensive line as well. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, career is not made in one game, but I think it's great for debut. It's a good start.
Next question here. What do you think of this coaching staff's halftime adjustments versus previous staffs?
Aha, see what you're trying to bait me here, aren't you? I think they did an excellent job. I think they've done excellent jobs all 3 games with that. I thought even more impressive than the halftime adjustment is what West Virginia did, adjusting 1 week to the next. The offense looked completely different. They used a lot of outside zone and some things to get the ball flowing one way, and so they could really run the ball straight forward later in the game. I thought that was an adjustment in itself. Other than that, defensively, I like what they've been able to do out of each half. I feel like they've played better in the second half each game. You'd like to see, as Patrick said earlier, not find yourself in that hole so often. But yeah, when it comes to adjustments, I think so far in the Neil Brown era, you can check mark that as an advantage.
It really speaks volumes too to the attention to detail that we've seen with this staff since they took over. I mean, there's everything's organized. Everything has a point to it. There's a plan for everything. I mean, it's just a very fine attention to detail in all aspects of coaching, both on and off the field. Next question here has to deal with the tight ends group. Are you surprised with the limited tight end production through the first 3 games? And now that Big 12 play is starting, do you think the playbook opens up to the tight ends?
Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that I did think they'd have a few catches by now. I know Johnny Haskins has been dealing with some things. He was obviously injured and got a slow start. No, because I'd not really seen the offense. They didn't use the ball. They didn't use the ball to the tight end a lot at Troy. I thought that was more of a factor of them not having the type of guys. I do think you'll see it more, though. I don't think it's something they're going to forget about, but it's about establishing some things right now. And I think that, do you really want to take the ball out of Sam James' hands and some of these guys' hands that are touching it? I think that right now what you're doing is working for the most part, but I do expect that role to grow.
Now going back to the NC State game, question here. Last weekend, fluke or sign of greatness?
Can I say somewhere in between? You're not going to learn anything in one game. I mean, you can learn some things, but you can say this every week, guys, and we practically do. How West Virginia responds now is just as important as how they responded last week. If you go out and lay an egg at Kansas, it doesn't really mean much. I think the one thing I did take away from it, though, above all, that was most important to me, is the way that they responded with their backs against the wall. When you're challenged by your coaching staff, and you're challenged by players on the team, guys are losing their jobs, things are happening, and you go in and play that well, that tells me that regardless of who West Virginia is going to play on the schedule, this is a team that's not going to lay down for their coach. I think Brown was able to rally them.
And Keenan, like you mentioned yesterday, I mean, I think last week we talked about how important it was last week. A lot of it had to do with just the trajectory of the season, and you lose another one there to NC State, then you're starting off 1-2. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that just momentum for the season going into Big 12 play. As you mentioned, it's really impressive just the adjustments this coaching staff has made from one week to the next, and we talked about that plenty of times. Next question here has to do with recruiting. How many more slots does Neil Brown fill with high schoolers, or will he save a handful to sign grad/standard transfers?
Well, West Virginia has room for 9 to 10 more guys in this class right now, and that's if they don't want a front field. And by that I mean take some people from the next class with blue shirts. Out of that 9, 10, I think the bulk's going to be high school guys. You're going to get some transfers, I think. I think you're going to have to. You'll have some turnover in some key spots. Probably some junior college guys. I think you've seen some offers go out to some junior college guys lately. They're not going to take a lot. It's going to be a situation where it's got to be the right fit. And I think it was really telling even this past year that Neil made it a point that, like the guys he did add for graduate transfers are talented players, but they had to be a fit for a program building perspective, and I think that's the approach they're going to take.
All right, next question here. Should we erect the Neil Brown statue when this team is bowl eligible?
When this team, you hear the confidence there.
A lot of confidence.
I think if this team makes the bowl, it's a home run of a season. I've been saying that practically since Neil Brown took over. I really feel like the deck was kind of stacked against him. I don't think this is an issue where there's no talent on the roster. I think it's an issue where a lot of the talent on the roster is young, and it's hard to depend on that week to week. Really good job. I think a lot of people out there, you're going to have some people that are going to say they should be 3-0. I think 2-1 at this stage of the season is great. If you're entering that bye week at 3-1, if someone asked you that before the season, I think most people would take it.
Keenan, I agree with you here. I mean, I really feel like if Brown gets his team to a bowl game, I feel like that's a tremendous start. He said plenty of times before the season started that, I mean, this is a young and inexperienced team. Now, this young and inexperienced team is getting their experience here through the first 3 games, and so far it's playing out well, but, he said for West Virginia, they just got to continue to build that momentum. Can't just be a one-time thing like it was against NC State. They got to continue to build off of that. Also, I mean, if there's any statue that's going to come next, it should be Don Nealon's.
Yeah, or mine.
Most importantly.
I don't think I'll be there.
Next question: Has the WVU playbook now been emptied, and will we just see slight variations of the same types of plays, or are there a lot more wrinkles Brown has yet to unveil?
Well, I think it looked completely different from week 2 to week 3. So something that Brown's already talked about quite a bit is they're going to have to reinvent themselves every week almost, especially when it comes to the run game. So no, I don't think you've seen the whole playbook. I don't think you've seen most of it. I think you'll probably see a lot more stuff break out. I think they've got a lot of stuff still left in the arsenal. If you're using your whole playbook by week 3 and one of your opponents was an FCS school, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah, I was gonna say you shouldn't be pulling out all the stops, throughout the, through the first 3 games of the season. Next question here, second to last question here. Quick update on guys that are injured who will not play this weekend against the Kansas Jayhawks.
I think the least likely to play is probably Josh Sills. I just don't get a good vibe there from what we've heard. He could, but even if he does play, I think it'll be in a limited role. Sean Ryan is questionable. I think that's the best way to approach it. I think he'll probably play, but if he does, it'll be in a limited role, sort of like what I said with Sills. I think everyone else should be good to go, other than the obvious. I don't think Drayshawn Miller's playing. I think he obviously is banged up still, but other than that, we should be. I think West Virginia's close to full health.
It said Mike Brown should be available this week. He was out this past week with an illness. That's why you saw, that was one of the reasons why you saw 3 new starters on the offensive line for the Mountaineers. It said with Mike Brown being back this week, not quite sure how that's going to change things. We'll see, obviously, on Saturday, but I would expect John Hughes, James Committer, obviously Bryson Mays to stick at center. It's going to be interesting to see what they do at those guard spots.
And I think the real question is what happens when Josh Sills comes back.
Yeah,
whether that's this weekend or next weekend or 3 weekends from now. I'm just speculating, but he is starter level talent. Your line is better with him playing. It's just how healthy is he to play. That's going to be the question, and mixing and matching is going to be interesting there.
Final question here. What type of defensive scheme does Kansas run, and how will it affect the type of play calling compared to NC State last weekend?
3 down. They're 3 down. It's not necessarily 3-3 stack, but I think that West Virginia will go in probably and do what they do best. They're going to try to establish the run, but get the ball, get guys moving again. I think that's their best chance for success because they've got to be able to pop some runs. If they don't pop runs, we've seen what the offense looks like. And you're not going to necessarily rely on trying to get 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 all the time because let's just be honest, guys, those aren't high probability situations.
And for West Virginia, especially with facing that 3 down front, for the offensive line, there's some turnover there from NC State now facing against Kansas. And Matt Moore made a point saying yesterday, especially for Bryson's case as a young redshirt freshman, a lot of those calls will be the same. So he's excited that he has now another full week to make similar calls, have similar communication with the rest of the offensive line as well.
And for those of you that are still here, now you get the treat, the one thing you've been waiting for. The present, you unwrap it on Christmas, you get our predictions. Pat, I went first. I'll give you the floor.
All right. Thank you, Keenan. I'm going to go West Virginia in this game by a score of 42-30. I feel like you're going to see kind of a back-and-forth game between these two teams. Obviously, I feel like both offenses are going to try to get the run game going. For me, it's going to be a question of which defense can rise to the occasion against that run. Kansas, as we've mentioned, has that 1-2 punch with Khalil Herbert, with Puka Williams. And like I mentioned earlier, it's just going to depend on which team can do it again like last week. We saw both teams, as Keenan mentioned, reinvent themselves last week. Who can carry that momentum? Who can, basically do it all over again? Like I said, for both teams, especially for West Virginia, and this was talked about on the offensive line as well. I mean, they rebounded. They had a great performance compared to the Missouri game a couple weeks ago. They rebounded against NC State, but it's just a question of which team can be more consistent now moving forward. I feel like West Virginia will be able to get the job done.
Wow, who thought that this game would be a turning point type game for the season? That's where we find ourselves. After what happened last week with both teams, West Virginia could be looking at 3-1 heading into the bye week. I think that would be obviously optimal. Kansas now has a little momentum too, though. I think that this was a game that everybody looked on the schedule and kind of automatically checked it as a win. I don't know if that's fair, but I think that was the belief by
Kansas,
a lot of people.
They've been competitive the past couple of years.
Yeah,
West Virginia.
Still, though, it's Kansas.
Yeah,
West Virginia has dominated that series, 8-1, I believe. And the one loss was at Kansas, though, in 2013. But I think West Virginia's going to win this game. I almost picked West Virginia last week, and I chickened out. I'm not going to do it this week. I'm going to pick West Virginia. I think they're going to win 34-24. I think it's going to be a good game for most of the game. I think West Virginia's able to pull away late. The one thing I am worried about is how West Virginia handles the road. I am worried about that after such a lackluster showing at Missouri. But I feel like that was more of a perfect storm in the game getting away from them and things snowballing so fast. How they respond is going to be key to me, but I do think West Virginia is going to win that game and come out 3-1 and looking pretty good heading into a looming date with the old Texas Longhorns. But this has been another edition of Musings from the Mountains. I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, hit subscribe. The game will be on at 4:30 Eastern. Again, you can only watch it on ESPN Plus. That means sign up for a subscription if you want to watch the game. If not, you can obviously tune into the radio or follow what we're doing on the site. I do recommend that. We will be having a lot of content afterwards as well as always. We'll be back to recap, review, and dig into what happened Saturday. So I hope you tune in. Once again, thanks. See you later.